The wine glass was still in her hand when she gripped my wrist. Her nails dug in just enough to hurt. Just enough that I'd remember it. "Where's the money, Eleanor?" she whispered, close to my ear, smiling for anyone watching. "I know there's more than that little condo. I can smell it on you." Somewhere behind her, a door slammed. My son's office door, the one he never let anyone touch. I didn't answer. I just looked down at her hand on my wrist, and then up at her face, and let her wonder what I was thinking. She had no idea what she'd just started. "My name is Eleanor Voss. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years, I built something most people said couldn't be built by a widow with a high school diploma and 2 kids to feed. I started Voss Interiors out of a rented storefront in 1995 with $4,200 in savings and a sewing machine that jammed if you looked at it wrong. By the time I quietly sold my majority stake 4 years ago, the company was doing $11.3 million a year in revenue, with contracts across 6 states. The sale netted me $6.8 million after taxes. Nobody knew that number. Not my neighbors, not my church friends, not even my own son, Peter. To the world, I was retired Eleanor, the woman who drove a 9-year-old Honda Accord and clipped coupons out of habit more than need. I liked it that way. My late husband, Frank, used to say that money makes people show you who they really are, and I wanted to know who was really in my life before I told them what was in my accounts. Peter, my only son, was 34. Good boy mostly. Soft in the ways I'd let him be soft, because I'd worked too many 16-hour days to also be the disciplinarian at home. He'd just married a woman named Kayla Ransom, 29, a brand consultant, though I never once saw her consult a brand for actual money. The wedding was in April. It cost $84,000. I paid for exactly none of it and told them I couldn't afford to contribute more than a modest gift. Peter believed me without blinking. 7 days after that wedding, Kayla showed up at my door uninvited, holding a bottle of wine and a clipboard. I should have known right then. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my grocery day, and I still had a bag of oranges in my hand when I opened the door and found Kayla standing on my porch in a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, holding a bottle of Sancerre and smiling like she'd rehearsed it in the car. "Eleanor, I was just in the neighborhood," she said, which was a lie, because my neighborhood was 40 minutes from anywhere she had reason to be. She invited herself in, poured 2 glasses of wine I hadn't asked for. In glasses, she found herself in my own cabinet. Sat at my kitchen table with a leather folder she opened like she was closing a business deal. "So I've been thinking about your estate," she said, casual as weather talk. "Peter mentioned you've never really done proper planning. No trust, no will that anyone's seen. That's not smart at your age. Anything could happen. At your age, I was 63. I'd run a company with 140 employees at that age. I appreciate the concern," I said, and sipped the wine she'd poured without asking. "I just think, as family now," she touched the word family like it was a fresh manicure, "we should talk about protecting what you have, before something happens and it all just gets eaten up in probate. Or taxes. Or, God forbid, some stranger contests it." There was no stranger. There was no one but Peter and me. She knew that. I smiled, folded my hands, and told her I'd think about it. I was already thinking about something else entirely, who had sent her, and what she actually knew. 3 weeks later, my neighbor mentioned, in passing over the fence, that a notary public had come to my house on a day I'd been at my sister's in Ohio. That had seen the car. She'd seen Kayla let the woman in with a key. I don't keep spare keys with anyone but Peter. I called a locksmith the next morning and had every lock in the house changed. Then I quietly pulled the notary's business card number off Dot's doorbell camera footage, called the office, and asked, sweetly, like a confused old woman, what documents had been notarized at my address. The woman on the phone, thinking she was helping a client, told me it was a power of attorney form, and signed. The other party said the homeowner wasn't feeling well enough that day, she explained. We're happy to reschedule. I hadn't been sick a day in 6 months. I invited Kayla to lunch. Told her I wanted to talk more about that estate planning idea. Her eyes lit up like a slot machine. I asked her, plainly, about the notary. She didn't even flinch. Oh, that. Peter and I have been so worried about you being unprotected. We had a document drawn up just as a precaution, general power of attorney, nothing sinister, it's standard elder care practice. Financial advisors recommend it for anyone over 60 without a trust in place. We were going to walk you through it together, but you weren't home, so we figured we'd get the paperwork ready in advance to save you the hassle. Jargon. Reassurance. A story with just enough truth-shaped edges to sound plausible. That's so thoughtful, I said. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Yun, a quiet, methodical man who'd done background work for Voss Interior's vendor contracts for years. I paid him in cash and asked for one thing, everything. 2 weeks later, he handed me a folder that made my stomach drop. Kayla had, 6 months before ever meeting Peter, filed for personal bankruptcy under a maiden name. Kayla Ransom had briefly been Kayla Marsh, with $214,000 in debt, most of it from a failed boutique, clothing line, and undisclosed gambling losses at 3 separate casinos. She hadn't married Peter. She'd married an exit strategy. The next Sunday, I arrived early to Peter and Kayla's apartment for dinner, using the spare key Peter still didn't know I'd had duplicated years ago for emergencies. I let myself in quietly and heard voices in the kitchen before they knew I was there. She's got to have at least 2-3 million tucked away somewhere, Kayla was saying, laughing, ice clinking in a glass. That condo is nothing. Old ladies like her always have a stash. Once we get that POA signed, we move her into Fairview Assisted Living, and boom, full access. She won't even know what account numbers mean by then. Peter's voice, quieter, almost apologetic. She's sharper than you think, Kay. She's 63 and drives a Honda with a busted AC, Kayla scoffed. She's not sharp. She's just cheap. There's a difference, baby. I stood in that hallway holding a casserole dish, and I did not make a sound. Marcus's second report was worse. Kayla wasn't acting alone. She'd been in contact, financially, not just socially, with a woman named Denise Ransom, her aunt, who ran a small senior services consulting operation that had twice been investigated by the State Attorney General's office for elder financial exploitation. Never charged, just investigated and quietly closed and reopened somewhere else under a new business name. Denise had messaged Kayla 4 times in the past month. Marcus got the messages through a source at Denise's former assistant, who'd left the job over concerns about client paperwork. One message read, "Once the POA is signed, we move fast. Liquidate what we can before the sun gets cold feet. He's soft. Keep him out of the room." They weren't just planning to take my money. They were planning to erase my say in it entirely and use my own son as a blindfold while they did it. I made a decision that night, sitting alone at my kitchen table with Marcus's folder closed in front of me and Frank's old reading glasses still sitting in the drawer where I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. I decided to become exactly the woman Kayla thought I already was. I started small. I let my hair go 2 extra weeks between color appointments, just enough gray showing at the roots to read as neglect rather than choice. I began forgetting small things on purpose, repeating a question I'd already asked Peter, misplacing my reading glasses in front of Kayla, and padding around the table for them like I was lost. I bought a cane I didn't need and used it on bad days. I let my hands tremble slightly when I signed a grocery receipt in front of her, a trick I'd practiced in the mirror for an hour until it looked involuntary instead of performed. I softened my voice, slowed my speech by half a beat, started every sentence to Kayla with a little apologetic laugh, the kind that says, "Forgive me, dear, my mind isn't what it was." Inside, I was sharper than I'd been in years. If she thinks I'm already halfway gone, I told myself, she won't bother hiding her hand. She'll show me exactly where she's planning to strike, because why would you disguise a blow against someone who can't see it coming? The cane wasn't for walking. It was bait with a rubber tip. I called Kayla myself, my voice small and uncertain over the phone. "I've been thinking about that paperwork," I said. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I should just let you and Peter handle things. I don't understand half of what these lawyers say anyway." I could hear the smile in her silence before she even spoke. We set a date. She'd bring the power of attorney documents to my house herself, along with a family friend notary, Denise, though she never once said the name out loud to me directly. 2 days before the meeting, I had a small camera installed inside the antique clock on my mantle. The one Frank gave me for our 20th anniversary, the one nobody would think to look at twice. Marcus set it up himself, tested the feed to my phone 3 times. I also placed a small recorder taped beneath the kitchen table's center leaf, angled up toward the chairs. I told Peter nothing. Not yet. I needed to know, with my own eyes, whether my son was in the room by choice or by ignorance. On the day itself, I sat at that table with my cane hooked over the chair back and my hands folded loosely in my lap, playing a woman half convinced by her own confusion. Under the table, out of sight, my phone buzzed once, twice, as Marcus texted updates from his car parked down the street, watching Denise's Attorney General file for any last-minute red flags. "Ready when you are," he wrote. I smiled at Kayla across the table. "Now," I said softly, "let's see what you've got for me." I didn't spring the trap at my kitchen table that day. I let them believe they'd won. I signed a decoy document Marcus had drafted, one that looked identical to the real POA, but contained a single clause redirecting any transferred funds into a locked trust one controlled. Kayla's smile when I signed it was the widest I'd ever seen on her face. The real trap closed 2 weeks later, at Peter's 35th birthday dinner. A private room at a restaurant Kayla had chosen specifically, 22 guests, including her Aunt Denise, and, at my quiet request, my old attorney, Harold Bream, whom I'd introduced to everyone simply as a family friend. Halfway through the appetizers, Kayla stood to give a toast, wine in hand, and couldn't resist one final cruelty. "To Peter," she said, raising her glass, "who's had to carry his mother a bit lately. She's not quite what she used to be, but we're taking such good care of her now. Aren't we, Eleanor?" She looked at me with a smile that dared me to disagree, dared me to prove her narrative wrong in front of everyone and look confused doing it. I set down my fork. I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to say a few things, if that's all right." The room went quiet the way rooms do when something shifts in the air. 3 weeks ago, I signed a document Kayla brought to my house. I said, calm as a Sunday morning. She and her Aunt Denise believed it gave them power of attorney over my estate. An estate, by the way, currently valued at $6.8 million, none of which anyone in this room except my late husband and I ever knew the real size of. Kayla's smile cracked at the edges. "Eleanor, I think you're confused." "I'm not," I said gently. "I recorded our conversation at my kitchen table on the 14th, where you and your aunt discussed liquidating my assets before my son, quote, got cold feet. I have that recording. I also have your bankruptcy filing from 2021 under the name Kayla Marsh, and I have 3 prior state investigations into Denise Ransom's business for elder financial exploitation." Denise's fork clattered against her plate. "The document you had me sign," I continued, "wasn't a power of attorney. It was a fraud complaint, pre-filled with your names, that automatically routes to the county's elder fraud unit the moment it's notarized with intent to transfer funds without the account holder's informed consent. Denise's notary stamp is on it. She notarized her own indictment." I reached into my handbag and set the antique clock's memory card on the table, next to the birthday cake, quiet as a period at the end of a sentence. Then I picked up the decoy folder Kayla had brought that first day, the leather one she'd opened like a business deal, and I tore it in half, slow and deliberate, the sound loud in that silent room. 2 men in plain clothes who'd been seated at the bar the entire evening. Detectives Harold had arranged to be present, at my request, once probable cause was clear, stood and walked toward our table. "Kayla Ransom, Denise Ransom," one of them said, "we need you to come with us." Within 6 weeks, the consequences moved fast, the way they do once the first domino falls. Denise Ransom was charged with 3 counts of attempted financial exploitation of an elder and 1 count of notary fraud. Her business license was revoked permanently by the state board. 2 prior closed investigations were reopened, and 4 additional victims came forward within the month. Elderly clients she'd been quietly siphoning from for years under the same elder care consulting cover. Kayla was charged as a co-conspirator. Her plea deal required restitution and 200 hours of community service, She avoided jail time only because Marcus's evidence showed Denise had orchestrated the scheme's mechanics. But the plea was public record, and public record travels fast in a small industry. She lost her position at the marketing firm within a week of the story breaking locally, and 2 prospective clients cited the case by name when they pulled their contracts. Peter filed for divorce 19 days after the dinner. He didn't need me to tell him what to do. He'd heard the recording himself, in full, sitting in my kitchen with his head in his hands for a long time before he spoke a single word. I want to be clear about one thing, though. I never wanted to be a woman who burned everything to the ground and called it justice. Voss Interiors still employed 12 people from my original hiring days, folks who'd had nothing to do with any of this. I quietly funded a $40,000 emergency bonus pool for them that spring, routed through my old business partner so no one would trace it back to the news lady's mother. And Peter, soft, foolish, but not malicious Peter, I didn't cut off. I helped him find a small apartment. I sat with him some nights while he cried about the version of his life he thought he was building. He was a victim of this too, even if he'd been a slow one to see it. It was late November, 7 months after that dinner, when Kayla showed up at my door again. It was raining hard, the kind of cold rain that gets into your bones. She stood on my porch without an umbrella, her coat soaked through, no makeup, no clipboard, no wine bottle this time. Just her hands, empty, twisting together. "Eleanor," she said, and her voice cracked in a way I almost believed. "I have nowhere else to go. I lost the apartment. I just need somewhere to stay, just for a few nights. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but please." I stood in the doorway a long moment, the porch light throwing a small warm circle between us that she wasn't standing inside of. "You're right," I said quietly. "You don't deserve it. But that's not actually why the answer is no." She blinked, rain running down her face. "The answer is no because I finally learned something at 63 that I should have known my whole life," I said. "Kindness isn't a weakness you can talk someone out of. It's a choice. And I'm choosing not to give mine to someone who tried to take everything I built out from under me while calling it family." I closed the door. Gently. Not a slam. There'd been enough slamming in this story already. Later that night, I sat on the porch swing with Harold, who by then wasn't just my attorney anymore, but the quiet, steady man I'd started sharing my evenings with, and he wrapped a blanket around my shoulders without a word. "You did the right thing," he said. "I know," I said. "It still doesn't feel like winning." "It's not supposed to," he said. "It's supposed to feel like peace. Give it time." We sat there a long while, listening to the rain finally start to ease, and for the first time in over a year, my hands weren't performing tremors for anyone. They were just still. If this story taught me anything, it's this. The people who love you don't need to know your net worth to treat you with respect, and the ones who suddenly do need to know it usually already told you who they are, if you were paying attention. Protect what you've built quietly, but never let quiet be mistaken for weak. Have you ever had to play the fool to catch someone underestimating you? Tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit home, hit like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.